legal timeline that we set up, right? It's nobody else's.
Right, but the timelines are governed by the government code, and we've agreed to certain timelines that we're permitted to do, and we can't.
But what if we can't agree
on the budget?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's problematic. Yes, you have until October 2nd at
So
this point now, if you adopt another resolution.
Is somebody come and throw us jail or give us 30 days in the state hospital or what?
You must have a balanced budget, according to the government code.
And what if we don't? That's.
Dealing with the state, I suppose.
Okay,
To reiterate my point, Mr. Chairman, in front of us today, we do have a balanced budget. We're already 3 months, a quarter into the year already. You know, there's going to be changes in allocations. There's going to be people quitting, all that. The numbers are going to change to a certain degree when you're talking, what's appropriations, $218 million. You know, that's all going to change. You know, we got, this is a starting place, is really what it is. We can talk about all the issues that's been brought up on the table. But I guess, David, being you was the one that voted for it last week, I'm urging you to consider, you know. I think your issues are well brought out and need to be addressed. You know, and another issue, any one of us board members on any given week have the ability to agendize something and bring it up for discussion and possible change. We have that ability every week. So we don't have to wait till the final budget deliberations to bring up a funding issue. I guess, David, I'm just pleading with you to maybe reconsider.
Well, I appreciate your efforts, John, but, you know, I think you're misunderstanding the nature of the situation. Number one, I don't agree that we have a balanced budget, okay? And that's why I had that on the last week saying we want, one of the things we'll do, this item is being voted on 3-2 with the idea that furloughs are going to be addressed, okay? Because it's the thing we back away from every time. When we start talking about the real question of how do we generate revenue, what about mandatory time off, what about the whole question of coming up with funding? So to say that the state requires that we have a balanced budget means that we have a balanced budget. This is a budget that calls itself a balanced budget, but is not, because we have not anticipated how we are going to deal with problems that are right there before us, and we're going to deal with them further down the road. So a balanced budget means that you are addressing those issues, you've taken them into account. Otherwise, again, it's voodoo economics, it's misrepresentation, it's flim-flamming the public, it's whistling past the graveyard. You come up with your term. But don't ask me to change my vote made today. You got two other supervisors too, and I credit you with being so positive thinking about how we're going to be able to solve these problems further down the road. But the other side of it is that at this particular junction, if this is what it takes to get us to address things that we have not addressed for 9 consecutive budgets, or this being number 10 for me, if this is what it takes, then I will simply stop voting in support. But we did have a week in which we get some evidence that this was being addressed, and it is not. The main issues are out there, whether it's teeter, whether it's some of the other issues that do not make it into the resolution, the 3-2 vote last week. But it's a 3-2 vote as of last week. This is this week, and that's why we have this process, to have then the week in which we finalize the budget or the preliminary aspect of the budget.
Okay, before I go to the CEO, I'm going to read the action of last week for the record. The board action was, upon motion by Supervisor Pinches, seconded by Supervisor Koufax, and carried on a 3-2 vote with Supervisors Delbar and Smith dissenting, it is ordered that the board directs the following. Leave the teeter plan in place as proposed by the CEO. Fund the outside commitments. Do not alter the solid waste landfill account. Execute the funding adjustments in the 08-09 final budget closeout funds available for board action illustration, and eliminate the funding for RCRC membership, Balance the budget with a general fund reserve of no more than $200,000. Further, the board directs that the first receipt of unanticipated revenues be added back to the general fund reserves. The board also directs staff to immediately begin looking at furloughs and directs staff to return to the board on board commitments within the second quarter of the year. Further, discussion to the motion, board members reflected on the timeline for the CEO to return with a scope of work proposal for continued policy discussion, the inclusion of various housekeeping adjustments, and the next steps in the budget adoption process scheduled for this date. The staff is doing exactly what we asked them to do. I am very frustrated to the point of having to guard my words that this be the point that we're at today after having developed a year-round budget to now having us acting just like the morons in Sacramento where we were elected to be better than they are. And I'm sorry, somebody said,